Hello, from raw to results, we will cover Power BI project. In previous video, we have examined or have a quick overthrow of the project that we have been completing. That was a business bank project, 365 business bank that analyzes business transactions and analytics project. It has four files. Let me show you. It has cards data, MCC codes, transaction data, users data. What each data includes, let's analyze in their files. In cards data, we have cards ID, then client ID. Client ID would be the user's ID, you can say that, and card brand, like it is Visa, Mastercard, Amex, or any other brand. Card type, whether it is debit or credit cards, prepaid or not, something like that. And in card number, you will have card numbers, their expiries, CVV of the cards, a card has a chip or not, number of card issued for that client, and then credit limit, and you have account open dates, year pin last changed for checking the activity of the cards. This is in the cards data. Then in MCC codes you have the transactions related to that, where the card has been used, like at eating places and restaurants or service stations, amusement parks, carnivals, circuses, and there are different MCC codes for different places where this card has been mostly used, or has been used in the previously. Then in transaction data, you will have the transaction details like transaction ID, date of transaction, client ID, who has used that card, and the amount of card amount transacted, along with card ID. Then use chip, whether it was chip transaction or not, or swipe or something like that. Then merchant ID, like you have seen in MCC codes, there is a merchant ID that where this card has been used. Then you have merchant state and zip related to that state. Then MCC errors, if there are any transactional errors, it also explains those. This has already been recorded in the transactions data. Then we have users data, where you have ID. This would be the client ID. uh, uh, Here you can see that it is only mentioned ID, but in cards data they have mentioned it as client ID. Here it is client ID. So when when we add this data or import in the Power BI, you will see that there will be some ambiguities, like how the data will be interpreted, how the relationship will be developed based on these details. So we will analyze this in later on. Keep it in mind for now. Then we have after ID we have current age of the client, then retirement age, birth year, birth month, gender, address, latitude, longitude. That defines the location of the person or the client, and it would be negative based on the where the client locates. Then per capita income, yearly income, total debt, and credit score. Credit score defines that how stable the client is, whether it is reliable or not. Then number credit cards used by the by this client. So these are some of the details mentioned in four different files, and we have been analyzing that it's a project of 365 business bank. Why they are using, why they want to interpret the data or want to analyze this data. They have clearly mentioned the objectives, like enhanced customer segmentation, personalization, optimization for resource allocation, and operational efficiency. Identify and mitigate potential risks and frauds. Like there were some errors in transactions that could be because of they were using it in a correct way or in incorrect way, or they were trying to misuse the banking system, something like that. Like someone has stolen the CVV or and the cards data and trying to use it for steal money from the client's account. So but it was rejected, something like that. So bank try to analyze these details to mitigate potential risks and frauds. This is one of the examples. There could be many other examples. And drive strategic initiatives to foster growth and competitive advantage. Like we have states data and the MCC codes, like where the card has been used. A bank can analyze these data and create collaborations or provide services or develop target markets for their customers. Like they can use effectively, or they can increase their online transaction instead of paying in cash. Banks develop these strategies based on the data. These are some of the examples. There could be many others. You can think about it. So they have defined possible insights, that what can be analyzed from this data, what they require from what analysis do they require uh, to develop better strategies. So customer demographic segmentation is one. Second is transactional volume and temporal analysis. Then MCC categories like spending analysis, geographical transactions, card usage, and performance analysis, strip transactions effectiveness, error and anomaly investigation, income versus spending behaviors, credit score and transaction relationships. like if credit score is better and the transaction amount is increasing, something like that, or if there is a inverse relationships that will be analyzed in the data. Debt burden and spending patterns, then card life cycle and renewal trends, how often the card is renewed, or the customer or the client is active or not, multi-card ownership and loyalty analysis, like if client has multi cards, like holding 5 cards, and whether his spending amount is increasing or not. These can be analyzed based on the data. Then merchant performance and partner evaluation, fraud and risk modeling, real-time integrated analytics dashboard, accumulating all of the above details and creating a dashboard for better analysis or better visualization to grab quick details. So these are some of the details that can be analyzed based on the data provided data. So what we can do, we will definitely start with importing the data in Power BI. Then we will transform the data to check if there is need to clean the data, if there are any missing values or errors in the data. If there is any negative value in the amount, that would be definitely an error. We will use the absolute method to remove the negative values from the amount or the amount data. So these are some of the details that we need to check before going into analysis. We will transform the data to remove the to clean the data or remove the missing values or the errors. This is one the first step. The second step would be creating a model view, like how the data is related with other, like one file is related with other. Like I mentioned, there is a client ID and there is ID in users data. How this will be related, so we can analyze in different files based on the model. Then we can use DAX queries, writing codes to evaluate further details. So in table view, we can see that we have not uploaded any files yet. Firstly, we have to import data from Excel. We can do this from by clicking here, or get data Excel workbook. We can import from this part, or if we have a file in CSV, we can use this option. After importing data, we will be transforming the data. As I said, that we will be modeling the data, that how the different files are related with each other. Here you can see different options, like we can create a dashboard by using these options. We have different templates already available in Power BI. Then optimizing, modeling, insert option will allow us to create reports based on paginated views and different options we have here, the composition tree or any other options, like we can create shapes or buttons. But let's start with importing data. How we can import data? We just click on the import button and it will fetch our data easily. Like I select the cards data, and here you can see that how it will be imported. It will be very quick and easy, and most of the work is done by Power BI on its own. And you will see that the Power BI will create relationships based by analyzing the data on its backend, and it is quite easy in Power BI. Yeah, here you can see that we have imported data, like cards data is imported. We can check it in table view, like what is in this data. We have account open date and all of the details have been imported. Similarly, we will import other data sets, and then we will transform the data. Like we can create a new table or new measure, new column. New table can be created or mark as date table. We can mark any table as date table. Here we have cheap, has the card has cheap or not. These details have been imported. Then we will transform the data. Before transforming, we will we will try to import other data sets, so that we have imported all data respectively. We have yes, we have imported all the files like users data, transaction data, MCC codes, and cards data has been imported in Power BI. In before transforming the data, let me show you that how the Power BI creates relationships. Here we can see that based on the data, Power BI itself created a relationship between MCC code and transaction data. It has MCC ID in MCC codes and MCC table in transaction data. Power BI analyzed on its own and created a relationship. If we check the properties, that what kind of relationship it has established, it is many to one, and cross filter direction is single. MCC codes in MCC codes table, MCC ID, and then in transaction data, it has MCC table. It has created a relationship between these two based on many to one and single cross filter direction. We will not change it. We will keep it as it has been created. But we need to create additional relationships between users data and cards data. Like I said, here it is client ID, and in users data, the ID is, of course, it is a user's ID or client ID. We can name it. So there should be a relationship between these two. But as I mentioned, that the name of the table was not accurate or was not right based on the data set. We can change the name in Excel file or create a relationship on by using here manually creating a new hierarchy, uh, connecting these two. But we will do it later on. If you want to do it, you can just connect to these tables. Let me show you that. Like you will take it here from here and drop it here, and it will create a relationships like one to many, single, like user data ID, and in cards data it's client ID. If I save it, it should create a relationship between these two. Yeah, you can see it here. It has created a relationship between cards data and users data. Then we can establish a relationship between transaction data and users data. Like let me check if there are any. Here we have client ID and users data, it has ID. It should be between these two, one to many and single. Yeah, here you can see that we have created a relationship between transaction data, users data, MCC codes, and back to cards data. That now we can see that our data is very well modeled, and one column can be used if we need any additional details, like if we want to analyze the client ID here or the transaction ID here in gender. We can do it. Means we can switch from a table to table within the Power BI. We need not to create multiple relationships now on. We have already created well established relationships between the four files. So this is how model is created. You can create hierarchy within a Power BI. If the Power BI is not developing relationships on its own, this may be because of the incorrect way of naming the tables. You can modify the table name in Excel or develop hierarchy in this way. So let's get back to our table. We have here cards data in client ID, and here is MCC codes, uh, then transaction data, then users data. If we go to home, we can transform the data. If it will tell us that if we need to if we need to clean any data sets or need any modifications in our data. Previously I've been using this the same data set for evaluation, so this is why I will refresh my data set here. Here you will have a valid data 100%, error 0%, and empty 0%. It is very um, informative way to analyze your data in very quick way. It will tell you that if there are any ambiguity or any. Here you can collect you can check this column quality. If you remove this, it will just erase that what has been previously visible. Column quality will tell you that if there are any empty or if there are any errors in your data. Like if we check the other data columns, we will, if there will be any errors, it will be visible. Here you can see that this data is 0% valid but empty 100%. Because this was a null table, we will just remove this table, this column. We need not to keep it because it is just null, just a null column. Same in this way, it's an empty 100% empty column with zero errors and zero valid data. But you can see that here in year pin last changed is valid 100%, no errors and no empty data. So we will just remove this column as well. Now this data is very much clean and need not any modifications or any transformation. We will just move on to the next data set, that is MCC codes. MCC code is also, we will just refresh it first and check it. It is 100% valid data, no errors and no empty data. Then in transactions data, let's refresh it first. We have 100% valid data. Column quality is very quick way to evaluate your and dataset quality with that. How it is it? Here you can see that empty is 8% and no error. Valid 91%, 92%. We will try to find out a way to remove this empty data, or or we can use other techniques to place some middle values if we want to retain these 9% of the data, because 9% is a big volume of data. When there are 999 plus rows in this data set, means we have 1000 rows and only 8% are empty. We can just remove the empty values, like by selecting this column and remove errors, or replace errors, split column. In any way we can just drop down the empty data set. There are ways, like I will select here null columns only. I will select only null columns, and here I have null columns only, and I will just remove, select and remove all the null values. I can do that. But there are other methods to retain these data set, these data values. If you want to, you have to work on this. Like I can place a middle value. If the merchant state is missing, I will try to use the middle values for that state, or assign a single state to all of the null values. Yeah, there are multiple ways to deal with such data sets. Here we have errors 50% valid and 50% empty, where there are no errors. If we remove these 50% of the values, it will be a huge chunk of data will be dropped. So we will try to use some other ways, like we will use that if there is no empty values, we can say it's a valid transaction. We will name it a valid transaction or something like that. Means if there is no error, it's a valid transaction. We can name it like that. Instead of dropping null values, we can just retain these values in this way. It is one step that we will just remove the empty, or and remove the errors. The second step would be using the right format for the data. Like here it's a zip, and it is using it as a decimal point that's accurate, and here it is using in ABC, or you can say they are using it as a text format. If we have any date, let me show you that if there is any date column. Yeah, here we have date column and time column, and it is using it as date and time. But in analysis we just need a date column separately and time column as a separate entity or as a separate column. We will just ungroup these two things and create two columns and transform the data in this way. We will keep just only date only, or the time only. Like I will, if I choose to use the date only, it will keep the date only. But I will remove this step, and first I will manage to use the time factor in my analysis also. So what I can do, I will create an additional column where I will keep, like I will use it as a duplicate column and try to keep it, transform the values as uh, time only. I will keep the time only. Here we have time only, and we name it as time. Time of transaction, you can name it time of transactions or time. Then in our original column we will just use it as date. We will just now transform it as date only. Now we have two columns, date and time. It will help us in better analysis. We can analyze based on time, based on date. So this is how you can transform data based on missing values, errors, and the right, choosing the right format for the data set. Like it's binary, it's a text, or it's date format, it's percentage format, or it's a fixed whole number, decimal number. You can choose from these options the right ones based on the value that you want to keep. So this is how you will transform the data. After transforming the data, we have already created the model or the relationships hierarchy. Now after this we will be analyzing the data that I will be explaining soon.